Hey everybody, what's happening? Son of a Silver Stacker here. In today's numismatic news and information for the 20th day of March 2022, I'd like to welcome you over to JM Bullion, and I'll show you where the spot price is end of the week Friday. Gold is at 1932.47, silver at 25.24, platinum at 1053.93, and palladium at 25.68. And the in-stock silver, you're looking at 708 pieces. Now, article over here at The Atlantic, I'd like to read to you a little bit, and maybe comments here or there along the way. And the title of the article is "It's a Great Time to Hoard Nickels. The Ukraine Crisis Has Shaken Up Prices and Sent Some Americans Scrambling for Coins." It's written by Saahil Desai. Cool little picture there, hoarding nickels right there with a pallet. Pretty cool. And it's written March 8, or at least published March 8, 2022, 11:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, I got to ask you two questions, and I'm going to have you think about that while I'm reading this, right? So, who is the audience that this author is writing to, and what is the tone that they're using? That's very important. Now, in economic speak, the Ukraine crisis has been a supply shock. In English, that means that in the United States, you'll now find record high gas prices, liquor stores devoid of Russian vodka, and Americans heading into their local banks and politely asking for hundreds of dollars in nickels. And we have seen that. We have seen people go to their banks and ask for a few boxes here and there. And it says here, let me explain. Russia supplies more than 20%, they do leave a link here, I believe, of the world's high quality nickel, which is a crucial component in everything from stainless steel to pipes to the batteries that power electric cars. But with the Ukraine under siege, companies in the West have been wary of buying Russian nickel. This has increased the demand for nickel from everywhere else, which in turn has bumped up its price in the London Metal Exchange, right? We talked about how the LME suspended electronic trading after they reopened on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. Really interesting stuff here. Oh boy, and it could happen to any other commodity like oil, gold, silver, or what have you, right? What happened next is as close to a Hollywood blockbuster as commodity finance can get. A Chinese businessman nicknamed Big Shot, who bet that nickel prices would fall, had to cover his mounting losses by buying back shares, shooting the stock somewhere into the exosphere. And it went up about 250% to about $100,000 per metric ton. Now, within the span of 24 chaotic hours last week, the price of nickel rose 250%, forcing the LME to exchange, London Metal Exchange, to halt trading for the first time since 1985. And imagine if you are a nickel trader, you'd get pretty tired of that because they did suspend trading again. And there are other places to trade nickel, right? In the Shanghai metals market, perhaps. During all of this, of course, some Americans found a roundabout way to make some money. Of course, they found a way to make money, right? Hoarding nickels. Yes, the coin is worth just 5 cents, but the metal it contains, 75% copper and 25% nickel, has long been worth more than that, according to coinflation.com, a website that tracks the value of the metals and coins. The melt value of a single nickel currently stands at 8 cents. Last week, during the height of nickel mania, it ratcheted all the way up to 16 cents. Actually, melting down those nickels for profit is illegal, but that hasn't stopped opportunity. See how they just spice that in? I imagine artists, sculptors would imagine they could melt those down, right? Couldn't they? That's interesting. What a great question. But that hasn't stopped opportunist investors from zigzagging between banks and credit unions to gather those nickels with the hopes of one day selling them off for more than 5 cents. If it's not, I mean, hey, people have sold silver, right? Silver quarters, silver dimes, and that sort of thing for their melt value, right? But they didn't melt those down, did they? So I imagine you could sell these for their melt value without melting them down. Maybe not. Who knows? Not a lawyer. I have a lot of questions. Forget Bitcoin and Dogecoin. This small community of financial speculators is pouring money into real physical coins. Scooping up coins for their metal is, in fact, an age-old tradition. Hey, look at that, folks. You're in good company. 5-cent nickels were first minted in 1860 because Americans were squirreling away gold and silver coins during the Civil War. Squirreling away means putting them away for rainy day. Now, over the past decade or so, a small but spirited subculture of prepper types, yes, so there it goes. The monikers come out. Spirited subculture of prepper types. Well, that's a moniker. That's some wordage, verbiage. Has been hoarding nickels as a contingency plan against inflation Armageddon. According to Boomerang by Michael Lewis, the hedge fund manager Kyle Bass owns 1 million in nickels that he stores in a vault in Dallas. Now the nickel prices have gone haywire. Hoarding suddenly seems to have hit it big. In pockets across the internet, people are plotting ways to add to their nickel stashes and flaunting their hauls. On Reddit's Wall Street Silver channel, users who call themselves apes, an apparent reference to silverback gorillas because, silver, are falling deep inside the nickel vortex. Wow, right? Some of the verbiage here. One post of a cardboard box plastered with $100 nickels is captioned with, "I know a guy that works at a bank. He said that he had one unopened box of nickels left." The top comments, like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, "You got the golden ticket." And there's probably a reason why people feel like that, right? The top comment is the golden ticket because other people probably went to the bank to get nickels, boxes of nickels, and they were unable to obtain them, right? Unobtainium. On realcent.org, the OG forum for coin hoarders, where Bitcoin enthusiasts get branded as crypto cultists. That's funny how she's calling out people who get branded and then brands other people. All the new competition has been met with a swirl of exasperation, frenzy, and paranoia. The teller said everyone hates nickels, posted a user who claimed to have just snagged some coins from a local bank. Not for long, ha ha ha. Another hoarder fretted about the real social threat, Oprah or a Kardashian tweeting about nickels. And I imagine if they did that, it would go mainstream, correct? And that's their fear that the hoarding of nickels would go mainstream. And what if it does, right? Wow. As far as I can tell, most of these hoarders aren't actually turning a quick profit off of 5-cent coins by surreptitiously smelting them down in their backyards. But you know what, though? If you go to eBay, you can find boxes of nickels for $170, $200. I imagine those are worth more than melt value. My plan is to just sit on it and see what happens. Mark Pacino, a hoarder in the Los Angeles area, told me, worst case scenario, I can just turn it back to cash. When Pacino heard about all the nickel madness last week, he told me he called up his bank and asked for $500 in nickels. His first foray into stashing the coins. The branch manager would supply him with only 2 boxes, however, 2 $100 boxes, each weighing more than 20 pounds. I think it's 22.2 pounds. Everything was like a normal transaction, he said, until I went to pick up the nickel, and the guy who brought them out from the back was asking me questions like, "So, are you a coin collector?" And it doesn't give anything else after that. So I want to find out what had happened, but they kind of leave you hanging there. Charles Boyles from West Virginia had a tougher time at the bank. He says he walked up and just told the 2 ladies at the front, "Can I have $100 in nickels?" He told me. They laughed me out of the bank. Nevertheless, Boyles said he managed to snag $300 in nickels in recent weeks, and he's hoping to land $700 more. Like Pacino, Boyles' long game is to hedge his bets, preparing for a world in which nickel prices are so persistently expensive that he could sell his coins for more than the face value, right? That's what people are doing. Let's face it. Ooh, excuse me. Bass, the famous hedge fund manager, declined in an interview, but in an email he pointed to his nickel stash, which weighs 220,000 pounds, or by my calculations, more than 6 empty 18-wheelers, as a way to teach his kids the basic ideas behind central banking and the money printing press. It was an exercise in how the world works and what we, as a family, could do to defend against inflation. Could you imagine 220,000 pounds of nickels? On the whole, nickel hoarding is still a niche interest. Sherry Regan, the chief financial officer of Indiana's North Salem State Bank, who serves on the U.S. Coin Task Force, told me that none of the bank's 9 branches has seen any noticeable increase in requests for nickels. This is probably for the best, is it though? Maybe, who knows? That's an opinion, is it? Isn't it? No can't even say that word. Economists, I can't even say. Oh boy, no one I talked to with advise pulling out your 401k and going in all on a nickels, right? All in on nickels. Even so, I was surprised that they had said the basic logic holds up. I've thought it over and over, and I've decided I'm not going to rush down to my bank and take out $1,000 of nickels. Terrence Odian, a UC Berkeley finance professor who studies investor behavior, told me. But of all the things people do, I've seen a lot crazier. That was a weird paragraph. Anyway, what makes nickel hoarding different from so many other shades of investing where your money could go kaput? That's what? is that 5-cent coins will always be 5-cent coins, regardless of the value of the nickel they contain, right? So they'll always be worth a nickel. The upside is potentially quite big. The U.S. Mint already lost $61 million by manufacturing nickels alone last year. Maybe one day the composition of the coins will change. Maybe one day, yeah, probably sooner than later if the nickel price keeps up like this, or they could be discontinued altogether. Look at there it is. At that point, the ban on melting down nickels would likely go away too, Odeon said. If not, maybe coin collectors, actual coin collectors, would want to start snatching up the newly extinct currency, right? Actual coin collectors, because I'm telling you, man, all these jabs. So interesting, all the vernacular used. Just don't count on nickel doomsday happening anytime soon, they say, while the pandemic has pushed Americans further away from cold hard cash, even pennies are still here. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. Just given the experience of the penny, I don't see us getting rid of the nickel anytime soon. But the experience of the penny was that they changed the metal content, didn't they? So that's kind of disingenuous and not honest about the history. Robert Waples, I can't even say that, economist at Wake Forest University, who has studied the effects of going penniless, told me the more fundamental problem is that inflation can cut both ways. If we eventually hit the type of hyperinflation where people get were like $20 bills on fire to stay warm, then a nickel stash would more than pay for itself because of the metal's lingering value. It says here, if not, then the slow creep of inflation will just eat away at America's nickel piggy banks while hoarders manage all the logistical headaches of storing coins in such ungodly quantities. Yeah, right. Yikes. Yeah, if inflation's going up, I would imagine metal costs from commodities would also go up as well. Interesting article. I'm telling you. In 2019, the blogger J.P. Koenig crunched the numbers on Bass's nickel stash and determined that, accounting for storage, foregone interest, and inflation, he was already down roughly $70,000 on his initial $1 million investment after 8 years. But that's 2019 numbers, not 2022 numbers. And I'm sure that, well, I'm pretty sure that he's roughly above his initial $1 million investment. Yeah, right? 5-cent coins, after all, will always be 5-cent coins in the 1930s. Okay, well, that was profound, huh? Statement of the year right there. In the 1930s, a nickel could get you a bottle of Coke. In the 1960s, it can get you a stamp. In the 1980s, it can get you a piece of gum. But good luck finding anything for that much these days, right? And the price of everything, the cost of the price and cost, I just merged those two words, is going up for everything, right? Even commodities. There it is, folks. I got to take it my plus one, and I really hope you were hanging around long enough. It was a really good article. I just think that some of the language is a bit biased, but that's okay. We just got to understand who their audience is and why they were using that tone. Now, for my plus one, it says here, this is out of Isaiah 61:11, for as the soil makes the sprout come up and the garden causes seeds to grow, so the sovereign Lord will make the righteousness and praise spring up before all nations. Yeah, that's right. That's pretty strong. So there it is, folks. I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for dropping by. Don't forget to hit that like button. And if you do like what you hear, please subscribe to the channel. It's free. Son of a silver stacker, out.